Hey everybody, this is Robert Burke. Welcome to episode 8 of When to Play. On today's episode, we are going to be talking about the Richard board game Memoir 44. There's the box there. This is a World War II game, and it is by Days of Wonder. And it's by Richard Borg. Richard Borg is a pretty prolific designer. I had a chance to meet him at Dice Tower Con 1 last year. He was a really great guy and very approachable. It was a pleasure to meet him. I bought this game after I got to meet Richard. And by the way, I will be at Dice Tower Con 2 this year in July, over the July 4th week. So if you don't have your tickets for Dice Tower Con 2, you need to get them. So come down to Orlando, Florida. It's a great town. My sister lives there. So there's more stuff to do in Orlando than any city I've ever been to in my life, especially if you have kids. But come to Dice Tower Con, and hopefully I'll get to meet you and we can play some games together. But Memoir 44 is... it's not really a war game. If you mention this game to a war gamer, they're probably going to laugh you out of the room. However, if there is any such thing as a gateway to wargaming, Memoir 44 is it. It's a basic game. It doesn't take a lot of skill or strategy to play the game or learn how to play this game. It's a game I have played with my 7-year-old son, and he is a huge fan of this game. He loves this game. You can consider this game maybe taking army men and putting rules around it and reenacting famous historical battles. So he absolutely loves it. If you have a son that loves military stuff, loves army men, then this is a game that you absolutely have to have. If you have interest in history and military history, but don't want to take the time to learn Advanced Squad Leader or something complex like that, then Memoir 44 is a really good place to start for you. First of all, it's Days of Wonder, so the component quality is really fantastic. The artwork is great. Here's the board. I'll show you the board, and it's a hex-based system. So on one side of the board, you have the beach. You have the beaches. So you can reenact D-Day battles on the beaches side. And then you have an inland side here where you can reenact a whole bunch of different battles as well. It also comes with a bunch of hexes. There's little towns and buildings. There are hills. There are trees and shrubs. The shed rows, and you've got rivers that you can put down as well. There's bridges, different bridges that you can put over rivers. So what's really cool about this game that I really love is you'll see here in the rule book. The rule book is very thick, not because this is a rules heavy game. It's not. It's very basic, and I'll go over that. I'll give you an overview of how it plays. But the rule book is very thick because it's filled with a bunch of different historical scenarios, which is fantastic, especially if you're teaching, if you want to teach your kids about history, especially World War II history, you can play this game with them and actually teach them the actual battles that happened during World War II, which is great. I've learned stuff from playing this game, which is really, really neat. For example, one of the first scenarios here is Pegasus Bridge. So I don't know if you've seen the movie. There's a great film called The Longest Day that's all about the Pegasus Bridge. And this, it shows you, each scenario will show you how to set up these hex tiles, right? The hex tiles, where to put them on the map, where to place the bridge. It shows you where to place Pegasus Bridge. It shows you where all the Allied troops will start the game and where all the Axis troops will start the game, or the German troops. And then you can start playing. But every scenario in here gives you a historical background. It gives you the dates. so you know when this particular battle took place and where it took place, and it gives you historical background, and it gives you what the starting armies are for each side. And once you get it all set up, when you get like the Pegasus Bridge scenario set up, you can reenact the Battle of Pegasus Bridge. Very cool. Very cool. It's for 2 players. Now, Memoir 44 has a whole bunch of expansions, and there's the Overlord, and you can expand it to have multiple players. But if you just buy this base game, the Memoir 44 as it comes in the box, it's a 2-player game. And it's, you know, the Americans versus the Germans. And you can go through and play all these different scenarios, or you can make up your own scenarios too. That's perfectly acceptable. So let me talk about the mechanics of Memoir 44. Well, let me talk about the components first. You saw the tiles, you saw the board, the box is beautiful, the rule book is great. It explains the rules very, very well. But then you get all these allied and Axis troops. You know, you get the Axis in gray and you get the allies in green. You've got tanks, you've got infantry, you've got artillery in here. So you've got bags of the army men, the little army men that you use, the little miniatures, and there's a whole bunch of them. You also get barbed wire and sandbags and hedgehogs and things like that that you can use on the terrain that your troops can take advantage of or that can hinder your troops. And then you've got your objectives. There's little objective medals that you can win. If you destroy a certain number of enemy troops or capture certain areas, you can win a medal. So if you kill enough enemy troops or win enough medals, then you win the game. And you can play it where you play the Allied side, then flip and play the Axis side and do the same scenario twice. And that's kind of a good way to play it, because sometimes the balance might favor one a little bit more than the other one. But at its core, the game is very simple. So once you get set up, you're going to have cards. All right, now these cards are very different. And this is something, honestly, that a lot of people don't like about Memoir 44. You'll hear a lot of people complain about it. But you have to remember, this is not meant to be Advanced Squad Leader, right? This is not meant to be a heavy war game. This is a light war game. It gives regular people, all right, who aren't war gamers, a chance to experience some of the battles from World War II without having to go to military school and read a rule book that's 150 pages, right? So that's a good thing. If a game can teach history and get people interested in a subject like World War II and the Greatest Generation, then it's a good thing, I think. And like I said, I've had more fun with this game with my son probably, and he probably likes this game more than any other game I've got, including my own games. So that's saying something. He really loves this. All right, so these cards. Each scenario is going to tell you how many cards you get to play. So it can be different for the Axis and Allies, and it usually is. But the board is going to be connected into a right flank and a left flank and a center. There's lines running right down the middle of the board. So some of these cards are going to say all. Like you see this card here. On the bottom, it's going to show you the map, and it says all. And it's assault. You can issue an order to call to all units in the center. So all the units I have in the center of the map, I can order. Some of these cards, like this one, Recon, says 1 in the center. So with this card, I can only order 1 of my units in the center of the board. Then there are... Here's one. This will let me, Recon and Force will let me order 1 unit, but 1 in each of all 3 of those areas. So some of them are just the right flank. You can order just units in the right flank. Some are units I can order on the left flank. Some let you order artillery only. Some let you order 4 infantry, no matter where they are. But most of the cards let you order in the center or the left or the right or all of them. So some people have a problem with that because, for example, maybe they really need to move forward on the right flank and that's their objective. And they've happened to draw no cards that let them move their right flank units at all. So you're stuck. You can't do what you want to do based on the cards. But again, this is a light game, and for me, that can be part of the theme too, right? Because in the fog of war, who knows what happens? Maybe there's a communication breakdown and you can't direct the orders to the right flank for some reason. Maybe the enemies took out your communication center, whatever. There's ways around the limitations of the mechanics to make the experience better. And when you play any game, that should be your goal, right? To have fun with it. And you can definitely have fun with this game, even though it's a very light game. All right, so you're playing cards. So if I'm going to play, this in the center. I'm going to play a card. Now I can move my units. All right, so during a turn, there are 5 steps in your turn, in sequence that you do. The first thing is to play a command card, and they're called command cards. And then you can order your units. You announce the units that you want to use, because if I can order 3 units in the center with my command card, maybe I've got 5 different units there. I've got to pick which ones I'm actually going to move with my command card, right? Then I can move my units. Then I can battle with my units. And then at the end, you're going to draw a new command card at the end of your turn, and then it passes to the next player. So if you move, there different types of units can move different spaces, and it's all laid out all in the rule book. And there are some very basic line of sight rules, right? You can't shoot through a hill, right? But you can shoot over a river. So there's some basic line of sight rules in the game that make it a little more realistic. But when you move, different units can move different amounts, different number of hexes, and then the range on different units is different as well. Now, when you attack, you're going to roll these very simple 6-sided die. And what they have on them is they have little infantrymen on them. If you roll an infantry symbol on your die and you're attacking infantry, then you have killed an infantry unit with every infantry that you roll on your dice. All right. If you roll an infantry against a tank, it doesn't do anything against the tank. However, there are tanks on here too. If you roll a tank, you do damage against a tank, but not against infantry. If you roll a green star, that's bad, that's a miss. No matter what you were attacking, you've missed. A grenade is good. That means you have destroyed whatever, you've hit whatever you were attacking, whether it's an infantry or an artillery or a tank. Then the final thing here is a flag. If you roll a flag, it means the unit that you were attacking retreats, and your opponent has to move it back. If the opponent cannot retreat, maybe it's up against the water, or it's at the end of the board, or there's tanks behind it, or something like that, then that unit is destroyed. All right? So it's a very simple combat system. All right, so there are some other rules. I've given you kind of the basic skeleton of Memoir 44, but there are some rules that bring the game up a notch. Things like taking ground. If you are in close combat with your infantry and you destroy a unit, an enemy unit, or force them to retreat, you can take ground, meaning you can advance another hex closer. There's also armor overrun rule, where if you destroy an enemy unit, you can move forward and attack again. So those things spice the game up a little bit and make it more interesting. There's special forces and elite armor in the game that you can use. They come with there's French Resistance and Army Rangers, and you can use those special units that have special abilities in the game in certain scenarios. And the terrain. The terrain has different, there's different things with the terrain, and they've got cards for all the terrain, which is very convenient because you can keep these in front of you based on the terrain that's on your map for that scenario, and you can refer to them instead of having to open the rule book all the time. Like, for example, for hills, it tells you right here the effect of hills is that it blocks line of sight except from adjacent hills at the same height. Yeah, there's no movement restrictions on hills. Terrain protection applies only against units battling from below. So, and then it gives you any modifiers to different types of units on the card. So these terrain cards are great too. So really, it takes the basic elements of a war game and filters it down and makes it accessible. That's what Memoir 44 is all about. Alright, so I think we need to look at some comments and ratings that people have left on Memoir 44 on Board Game Geek. This is the kind of game that will definitely show you a dichotomy, right, between those who hate it and those who love it. So neither one is correct, right? It depends on you and what you like in your games and what you're looking for and who you plan on playing with, right? Somebody's opinion doesn't matter to you. So let's read some of these. But first of all, Memoir 44 is ranked pretty high. It's ranking, let me look at it. It's ranked number 72 out of the thousands of games that are rated and ranked on Board Game Geek. But Heinz rated this game a 1, and he says this game is the McDonald's of war games. It sucks balls if you had a real hamburger, but most people have incredibly bad taste. So, you know, come on, Heinz. You really? You see, I think that's a wargamers have a hard time finding people to play with. And that's a good example why. I mean, if you're going to condemn people and say that they're stupid or that their games, because they like a certain game, that they have bad taste, come on, really, that's ridiculous. Sure, there's better war games out there that are more detailed and more, I wouldn't even say more historically accurate, but more detailed. I mean, you can get war games that go down to, okay, I'm going to fire my artillery, and where does it hit? Oh, it hits the tank's track. Okay, how does that damage the tank? And you can get really, really detailed, but you have to like that kind of thing, right? So that's really, Heinz's opinion doesn't really, it carries no weight at all. Here is Scott. Scott says, dumb and pointless, neither a fun game nor a war game. I thought my kids would learn a bit of history, and instead they called it unrealistic. All right, so I don't know what kind of kids he's raising. They're probably going to be snotty wargamer adults when they grow up. Who knows? But if you want to really teach your kids some history and play something that they're actually going to enjoy, Memoir 44 is definitely it. Unless you're raising your kids to be wargamers. I would say that Scott's kids are probably a little different than most. Let's look at some of the 10s that people have given this game. And there's a bunch of it. All right. Dan says, great fun. We'll see a lot of play. Repeated play leads to a desire to play more. Upgraded rating due to Days of Wonder customer service. That doesn't really talk about the game. Gameplay is fast and fun. The as-is game is great. And this one will be a launching pad for a lot of fun house and optional rules. A delight for rules tinkerers. Christopher says, I love it. The new terrain effects, the close assault rules, the special troop types, the metal bonuses for controlling strategic sites, the high production value, all improvements over Battlecry. Frog also gave it a 10. Frog says, incredible. Distills the fun aspects of a typical chit and counter war game into a fast, simple, dynamic mode of play. Pure fun. So that's the bottom line. It distills the whole complicated war game thing and makes it accessible. That's what Memoir 44 is all about. And making it accessible, getting people interested in history, helping them to learn the battles that actually took place during World War II. That's a great thing. And that's my opinion. Okay, so when to play Memoir 44. If you have any interest in military history and you are not a war gamer, but you enjoy games, this is a game you need to try. This is a game that can teach you the battles that took place during World War II. The base game comes with a whole bunch of different battles, and you can add on to that, right, with books and other supplements. So you can really get a lot out of this game if you have interest in World War II. If you're a war gamer, you already have an opinion on it, so you don't need to listen to me talk about it. If you're looking for a party game or a multiplayer game, you gotta cross this off your list. It doesn't fit. It's only a 2-player game unless you do the Overlord expansions and all that stuff. And it's not a party game, right? I mean, this is a pretty serious theme, so it's not something you're really gonna be laughing and joking and drinking beer and all that kind of stuff around. It's got tactical elements to it. It does. How you're going to move your troops, how you're going to position yourself to reach your objectives. But it's very luck based. You've got cards, your command cards. It's luck of the draw. The movements that you're going to be able to make are based on the luck of the draw. When you actually do battle, your success or failure is going to be dependent on your dice rolls. So that's another big luck element. So if you don't like games that are based on luck, if you like pure strategy, if you're a hardcore strategy gamer or Euro gamer, you're not going to like Memoir 44. It's luck driven, but it's fun, right? If you want to have a light game and have some fun, Memoir 44 fits the bill. Now, with that being said, there are some negatives to the Memoir 44. You have to understand that when you play this game, it's an investment in time. The game moves fast. It's not slow. There's no analysis paralysis problem with this game ever, right? But the setup time is a dog. It takes a while to set it up. You've got to figure out what scenario you're going to play first. You want to read the background information, right? You want to read the historical information, especially if you're playing it with your kids. You want to read them. Here's the battle we're doing. Here's the background. Here's the history. Here's the years that it happened. Because that's where you really get some really great benefit out of the game besides having fun, right? You can really learn something. But then you've got to place all the terrain tiles down. And sometimes that can be hard because you're looking at a map on a page in the rule book and you're trying to match what they show in the setup and place the tiles as shown onto the board in the right places. So if your orientation is off a little bit, you can get messed up and you're like, oh no, I should have been one more over, and then you got to move all the tiles over again. So, and then after you get all the tiles right on the board for that scenario that you've chosen to play, then you've got to put all your units, all your troops on both sides, Axis and Allies. You've got to put them down in the right spot. Then you got to make sure that's all right. If there's any bridges or special forces troops or anything like that, you've got to put them on the board, right? Everybody's got to get their cards, and you've got to get everything set up before you even start playing. There's a lot of setup in Memoir 44. So if you don't like that, this is not a game for you. It's not a game where you open the box and put a board down and put a couple pawns out and let's go, we're ready to go. No, it takes an investment. There's a setup investment of your time before you can play this game. So if you're looking for something quick, Memoir 44 is not going to fit the bill. So I hope this video has helped you determine whether Memoir 44 is something good for you to play, if it fits your family, if you've got an interest in the military history, if you're wanting to teach some of this military history to your kids. And if you're a war gamer, I'm telling you, this is a game. If you have trouble finding war gamers to play with, this is a way that you can introduce them to your hobby. So instead of saying, oh, that's a horrible luck-driven game, and turning your nose up and turning people off to your hobby even more than they are now, use it to show people that your hobby has real value. And it does. It does have value because you can learn an amazing amount when you play a historically based game, more so than watching a film or reading a book, right? Because You're reading about the history and playing and reliving the history on your tabletop. And that's a good thing. So again, thanks for watching. I'm Robert Burke, and we'll be back with episode 9 soon. Thanks.